Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan and today I have quite possibly the most controversial video I've made during this preseason, where we're going to be looking at some of the players that I think are really overhyped. A lot of these players, people are saying they are must-own guys that you have to have in your FPL teams, when actually I think you could possibly afford to go without them. And that is the purpose of this video. It's not to say that these picks are bad necessarily, but maybe they are just hyped up just a little bit too much. Maybe you can go for some alternatives instead. I think some of the players later on this list will surprise you, but if you do enjoy this video anyway, please do drop a like. Really would be appreciated on a very controversial video. Let's start off with the 8th most overhyped player in FPL right now. Okay, so for number 8, I am going to go with Enciso. I feel like at 11.5% ownership, that means a lot of people are going for him. I've seen in my live chats, I've seen in my comment section, a lot of people are really keen to go for this guy and are kind of looking at these fixtures and kind of maybe looking at some of the other Brighton players and saying, hey, 5.5 million, I'm going to go for Enciso. And it's true, I have probably not helped this situation, and that's one of the reasons I'm putting him in this list, is because perhaps I've been guilty of overhyping him myself, because I actually am not fully convinced he is nailed on anymore. I know if he was nailed on, he would look really good. These numbers are fantastic, these fixtures are fantastic, but from game week 4, the Brighton fixtures do look really kind of tough, and you probably want to remove some of your Brighton players. So if you're going for a triple up and it involves Enciso, you may land yourself in trouble and be forced into a transfer, and that's even before you consider that players like Adam Lallana and also Joao Pedro could be the players playing behind the striker, and maybe Enciso is not going to be playing very much at all after all. Maybe it's a little bit too soon for the 18-year-old, so I wonder, is he actually going to be the guy to be this emerging talent in the new season? Sure, it could happen, but right at the start, I would want to see, first of all, how Brighton are lining up, because I feel like Joao Pedro, with the talent that guy has, really good player, and Lallana, who was the main player playing behind the striker before his injury. I know we think it's of it as McAllister, but before it was Lallana, after Lallana got injured, then it was McAllister, but Lallana's back, so maybe it's him instead. So many questions still need to be answered, and I feel like Enciso, with all the hype he has around him as this emerging talent, maybe he won't even be getting the game time to get the FPL points that we want from him. Number 7 is Jordan Pickford, and I've made no secret before about how I'm not too keen on the 4.5 million goalkeeper here. 14.8% ownership at time of recording, and this to me is very surprising. I know a lot of people have gone for him because he was hyped up as the 4.5 million goalkeeper to pick very early on, when you know, a lot of content creators have been making their drafts trying to pick a 4.5 million goalkeeper, and Pickford seemed to be the default pick to start off, to go for that 4.5 million slot. But when you look at the numbers, Pickford really last season was not really a very good goalkeeper. In fact, he was the second worst goalkeeper for points per game throughout last season out of all of the regularly starting goalkeepers. I think Keylor Navas was the only player who scored less than him per game. Now, a lot of people said, well, after Sean Dyche came along, maybe things changed a little bit. Maybe Everton sorted themselves out a little bit. Well, that wasn't really the case. In fact, Pickford was still in the bottom 3 for goalkeepers at that point, overtaking the likes of Bazunu. So really, it was not looking good at any point in the season for Pickford. It's just that he faces so many shots all the time. He concedes a lot of goals. He does make the odd save here, but you can see the clean sheet record here. 0.22 clean sheets per game. Expected 0.22 as well. So kind of consistent there. The problem here really is just a case that Everton concede a lot of goals, and you're only going to get a clean sheet 1 in 5 games roughly, maybe 1 in 4 games if you're lucky there, but in general it's just not good enough. And I think there's so many other 4.5 million goalkeepers that are a lot better. Flecken, if he starts for Brentford regularly, you can go for a Leno if you want to. You can go for a Johnston at Crystal Palace. If you can figure out which Brighton goalkeeper is going to be playing, that will be a lot better as well. You can pretty much go anywhere else and still get a better goalkeeper pick in FPL than Jordan Pickford. So for that reason, he is, for me, very much overhyped. I don't think you need to go for him. I think you can do just as well, if not better, with someone else. And again, like I said, that's the purpose of this video. I think there are better options elsewhere. Tyrone Mings, over 15% ownership, and I'm really worried for his minutes. He did overperform quite a lot last season. You can see his expected points per game were 3.05. He actually averaged 3.71 points per game, so an overperformance there. Maybe more clean sheets than you could possibly expect there, more assists than you could possibly expected. So maybe that's down to the goalkeeper in Martinez, maybe keeping the Aston Villa safe from goals conceded, I guess. But at the same time, it is a bit of an overperformance. So we might see a reduction, a regression to mean in his numbers and maybe not so many points. But I think the bigger concern with Tyrone Mings is Pau Torres coming in at the kind of left centre-back position. So Pau Torres is going to be probably the left centre-back for Aston Villa here. So that does concern me a little bit. And therefore, we've got, of course, Carlos as well, who's still at the club. He often likes to play at left centre-back as well. Is Mings going to be playing every single game for Aston Villa, particularly when you consider European football? Is he nailed on? I'm not sure. I think Pau Torres is the better defender. He's the same price, and he's going to probably pick up bonus points a little bit easier because Torres is more of a ball-playing kind of centre-back, so he is going to be making those passes as well. And therefore, Mings is not even the best 4.5 defender at his own club. I mean, you could even say that maybe Matty Cash is a better option as well. So, therefore, is there really any point in going for Mings? Is it actually a little bit of a risk going for him with the potential that Pau Torres eats into a lot of his minutes? I think there's definitely something to consider there. So, Mings, default 4.5 centre-back for a lot of last season, maybe not so much this season. Alexis McAllister, again, another overhyped player. And this player is kind of overhyped for slightly different reasons. And I feel like it's the kind of new club, shiny new toy syndrome that I know a lot of us are very, very guilty of. I get it myself. I get excited about a new signing at a new club and I want to pick them in my FPL team. But when I try and step back and think about it logically, you got to think, how is McAllister going to be this season compared to last season? So 6 million midfielder, and at that price, you could do a lot worse. He's a cheap player, I guess, and he should be starting pretty regularly for Liverpool, but is that enough for us? For me, no. Last season, we saw him get a decent amount of points. He was playing behind the striker for a lot of the season, and also he was on penalties and a lot of those set pieces. Now, we know that that's unlikely to happen at Liverpool. We've got Salah, who's going to be taking those penalties. We've got the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold and Szoboszlai also on the other set pieces, corners, free kicks, maybe Robertson on the left corners as well, potentially. So there's going to be a lot less avenues for McAllister to get those goals. He's not going to be in and around the box as much as he was last year. He's not going to be on penalties. He's not going to be on set pieces. So therefore, naturally, we should see a reduction in his points. Now, he's also playing in a Liverpool team with many, many very good attackers in it. So the kind of attacking points, the goals, the assists are going to be divided up a lot more in the Liverpool team, carved up, served out to different players compared to Brighton. So Salah's going to get involved. We're going to get Cody Gakpo involved. We're going to get Jota involved, Darwin Nunez involved, Szoboszlai involved, Trent Alexander-Arnold involved. They're all going to be involved in different ways. And McAllister's slice of the pie is going to be a lot smaller at Liverpool than it has been in previous seasons for Brighton. So therefore, 15.6% ownership seems way too high for this player. I don't think he is going to be scoring the same as last year's season, and I feel like he may disappoint a lot of people bringing him in with the excitement of the shiny new toy. So yeah, let's keep it moving. My fourth most overhyped player before we get on to the really controversial ones is going to be Amari Bell, who currently sits at over 20% ownership, which means he is in 1 in 5 FPL teams right now, possibly even higher among active players, really, really active players, because at the start of the season, when the game first launched, we all have to kind of admit, we saw Amari Bell as the default 4 million defender to go for, and I know 4 million defender is probably going to sit on your bench a lot of the time, but I still think there are reasons to try and think a little bit, look hard, work hard, and trying to figure out the right 4 million defender to go for. And I don't think it's Bell. I don't even think he is going to be the best 4 million defender at Luton. I think Kabore is going to be a little bit better. Bell is either going to be playing as a left wing back or a left centre back. So there's two different positions he could play there. So it could actually be more of a centre back than a wing back. Even last year, we didn't really see him getting very many attacking returns in a much easier league in the Championship. You can see on screen, guys, 0.02 goals, 0.02 assists. This is pretty low, particularly for a player who will pretty much have to depend on attacking returns, because for Luton Town, we're talking about the kind of weakest defence in the entire league. Clean sheets are going to be hard to come by, so you could actually find that Bell isn't even scoring 2 points just for playing. If Luton start conceding 2, 3, 4 goals per game, we could see Bell scoring 0 pointers and 1 pointers. And at that point, the 20% of people who own this player are going to start selling him. They're going to swap in for other 4 million defenders. They're going to swap in for other 4.5 million defenders if they kind of want to change up their formation a little bit. And as people sell Bell, they will start to see that Bell decreases in value. He'll go down to 3.9 million pretty quickly. He'll go down to 3.8 pretty quickly after that as well. And by that point, if you're a Bell owner and you haven't sold him, like everyone else, then you are going to have a reduction in your team value. So this is a player who you can pick who can actually harm your team. So I would prefer to go for someone who I think is more capable of going for points. I really like Sam Baldock, for example. Malo Gusto at Chelsea, it could be really nice if there's a little bit of rotation or injury with Reece James. We've got Branthwaite at Everton, who could be pretty decent as well. He's expected to start, get fairly regular minutes in the new season. And we also got players like Bayer at Burnley as well. So all of those players, when you add them all together, I feel like Bell is just not the 4 million defender to go for. I think he could do more harm than good, despite the fact he seems like a harmless 4 million defender on your bench. I think it could be a bad move to go for him, and he's certainly been overhyped as the 4 million defender to go for. I don't think he's the 4 million defender to go for at all. I think he probably doesn't even make the top 5 for me, so let's move on. All right, the third most overhyped player in FPL, in my opinion, is Bryan Mbeumo. Wow, this is a controversial one. I admit it. I accept it. And like I said, I don't necessarily think these players are bad picks, but I don't think they're must-haves. I feel like that they are maybe players you can afford to bet against. And Mbeumo is definitely that player. And I think a lot of the problem with Mbeumo is that, particularly when the game first launched, we kind of saw a situation where everyone was saying, well, Tony is out. He is suspended until January. That means Bryan Mbeumo is going to be the striker for Brentford. Well, that's probably not going to be the case at all. Even when Tony was out at the end of last season, actually we saw Joao take the centre kind of striker role, and particularly in these easier fixtures, what we see is Brentford line up with 3 forwards, which is going to involve Mbeumo on the right wing, and we've seen that a little bit in pre-season as well. So Joao central striker, and Mbeumo as a winger. You are not getting a striker, an out of position striker type player here. You are getting a winger. So same as any other. It's not an out of position player. Yes, he is on penalties, and I do think that is big credit to Mbeumo, and I feel like that should be taken into consideration. But another thing that a lot of people say is Bryan Mbeumo, when Tony is out, he's scored pretty well on the FPL points. But in general, we know that Mbeumo is not a fantastic finisher, and this is the problem. He's got decent underlying numbers. You can see expected points, 4.91. Now look at his actual points, 3.97. Expected goals, 0.31 per game. Actual goals, 0.22, and it all comes down to Mbeumo actually not being the greatest finisher in the world, and therefore he can rack up as many shots as he likes. He's not going to score them in a clinical way, as we see with a lot of other kind of forward players. So Mbeumo, yes, he is a decent pick. He is a solid pick. He's an okay pick. He's fine for 6.5 million, but I don't want people to feel like they have to go for him. I think there is other valid forward options. You know, go for Wissa if you want to get in on the Brentford attack, but also Brentford, there is a chance that they don't have an amazing start to the season. Yes, they've got good fixtures for a pretty decent amount of time, but are we super duper confident in Brentford? Are we super confident in a player who has consistently been a poor finisher? I don't know if I am necessarily, and I don't think there's enough data without Tony in the Brentford team to suggest that Mbeumo is definitely 100% going to be this superstar player in the new season. He could be fine. He could be good, but I don't think it's nailed on, and one quarter of teams have him right now. You don't have to if you don't want to. Gabriel Jesus, the most popular forward in the game outside of Erling Haaland, and who can blame you? I mean, we've got the similar situation here to Mbeumo, to be fair. I think that's kind of the issue. And Gabriel Jesus, for all of you stats nerds out there, and I definitely include myself in that category, when you look at the expected points, the expected goals, it all looks very, very good for Gabriel Jesus, but he's another player who consistently for years has kind of always underperformed his numbers. He's always, not been the greatest finisher. He does underperform year after year, always by a few goals, 3-4 goals. He'll score less than what is expected of him. So even though his numbers look really good on paper, his actual output is not always there. And I do still think that Gabriel Martinelli is the best kind of goal scorer in this Arsenal team, the best finisher, the most clinical guy there, who is going to be the main goal scoring output. Similar to Manchester United, we see Rashford on the wing, good attacking output. We see Salah for Liverpool. He's the primary goal scoring output there. It's not all about strikers these days, guys. So just because Gabriel Jesus is playing through the centre, it doesn't always mean that he is going to be the main attacking threat in that Arsenal team. And I think that's a mistake a lot of people have made. Also, I do think that although we did see the likes of Nketiah and Trossard kind of play in that central striker role for Arsenal last season, this season we've got Kai Havertz, who I think could play there at times, particularly with Champions League. Could see a little bit of a rotation here and there. And we've also got Balogun. So Following Balogun is still at the club, so until he's sold, maybe he's going to eat into Gabriel Jesus' time a little bit. Of course, I'm just speculating a little bit here, but I think it is worth considering. And I know a lot of people are going for Jesus because of structure. They're saying, well, I don't really know what other forward to pick, so I guess I'll go for Gabriel Jesus as my kind of second or third Arsenal attacker in my team. He's going to be the guy who I'm going for, and people kind of default to these players. And that's, again, a consistent theme in this video is a lot of these players, people just think, 8 million forward, I guess we go for Gabriel Jesus. But I feel like you could be missing out on the points from the likes of Martinelli, the points from the likes of Ødegaard, if you're sacrificing these players in order to get Gabriel Jesus, just because of structure. I feel like you could miss out on points, and I do think there are some other forwards that you could go for instead. Nkunku looks good. Ollie Watkins looks good as well. The Chelsea guys look good in general, but I do think maybe Nico Jackson could maybe go quite well as well. And there are other options as well. There are other kind of differential options out there if you want to go for them. So I don't think you have to go for Gabriel Jesus if you don't want to. If you're putting him in just for structural reasons, I think that Ollie Watkins and Nkunku could do just the same job for you and allow you to go for perhaps a slightly different Arsenal player there as well. So Jesus, for me, almost a third of FPL managers going for him right now. A little bit overhyped as far as I'm concerned. He's good, but he's not 33% ownership good as far as I'm concerned. Let's move on to, in my opinion, the most overhyped player in FPL right now. And that player is Kaoru Mitoma. And I have a problem with this one. I have a problem with this one because he is so overhyped and so highly owned that you're kind of forced to have him. I've got him in my draft right now. So like I say, I don't think these players are bad picks. I just feel like they're maybe a little bit too overhyped. This is very, very high for what you're getting. And I do want to admit to you guys, Mitoma is probably the best FPL asset on this list, but he's also by far the most popular player on this list as well. So is he actually justifying that 37.7% ownership? I don't think he quite is, because I do still worry a little bit about his end product. He's obviously a very, very beautiful football player, but when we're talking about FPL, what we want the most is just end product. We want the player who's going to get the goals and the assists, because that's just how FPL works. You don't get points for dribbles, and if you did, Kaoru Mitoma would make 6.5 million look like an absolute bargain, but that's not quite what we've got. I think we could see a little bit of rotation when the kind of European football comes in, and the fixtures, like I say, they turn sour very, very quickly. Now, Mitoma is one of the best players at his price point, but Solly March is only sort of 2% owned right now, and Solly March actually puts out better numbers than Mitoma. Some people are saying that Solly March is actually going to be kind of less nailed on, but I don't really see a reason for that necessarily, other than Mitoma is maybe slightly more represents the future of Brighton. I think that's maybe the only difference between the two players, but yeah, March is more, a more clinical player, is more kind of directly involved in the attacks, so I'm surprised to see such a difference between the two players' ownership. I really am very surprised to see that. Mitoma is a great player, a decent FPL pick, but at 6.5 million, I think the likes of March, Eberechi Eze, and Mbumo is definitely an option there as well. We've got some 7 million players as well that kind of look kind of good as well. We've got some 6 million players that look kind of good. I think there are other options to go for at a similar price. I don't think you have to go for Mitoma if you don't want to, and I'm kind of hoping less people go for him by game week 1, because I would quite like to bet against him, but at this kind of ownership, it's really difficult to do that. It's such a risk to go against him if it doesn't work out. Things are going to go very wrongly, but he's still, for me, at this percent ownership. Like, I struggle to find anyone who doesn't have this guy in their FPL teams right now. I really don't. Like, you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing most of you have this guy in your team right now, and I'm exactly the same as you. So, yeah, is he overhyped? I think slightly. He is not as good as this percentage makes out to be. This is an insanely high ownership. He should probably be around, I don't know, 20% ownership. That's probably where he should be, roughly. So, yeah, maybe a bandwagon a little bit, but he's still a good pick. So, I'm conflicted on that one. Let me know, guys, are there any other players that you think are overhyped? Who is your #1 most overhyped player that you've seen in the FPL world in this preseason? I'm very, very keen to know what you guys think about this one. Or do you think that actually some of the players I've mentioned today are really, really good and actually rightfully hyped? I don't know. I'm just putting my opinions out there today, and I thought it could be at least a little bit of an interesting discussion kind of thing that we could have going on. And maybe some of you guys who are on the edge, whether you actually really want to pick this player or not, not. Maybe I've kind of tilted you one way or the other. I don't know. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this one. If you did, please do drop a like. Do subscribe if you're new around here as well. Make sure you check out Fantasy Football Hub. Link in the description. They got 50% off right now on their subscriptions. And yeah, they also give you your money back if you win your mini league. So yeah, go check that out. That's pretty insane as an offer. So yeah, aside from that, thank you so much for watching once again. And I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.